You're listening to Ear to the Ground podcast. Hello and welcome to the Ear to the Ground podcast, episode 2. This is with me, Danny, Billy and Faith.
On this week's episode, we have some news for you, and then we're going to be reviewing TV, podcasts, what we've been watching, and a film as well.
Yep, so on to the news. Some really sad news coming out today that Tom Petty has died at age 66. Yeah, 66. Yeah, really sad news.
Can we talk about who he is? Because I'm a little bit, I'll be honest, I don't want to be ignorant, but
yeah, he's
I
a
need
bit
education on this one.
he's a bit of a legend. I think I don't really know too much of his music, but he was part of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. I think he's been around quite a lot. He's collaborated with Bob Dylan, Stevie Nicks, Roy Orbison. I think he was in a band with Dylan called the Travelling Wilburys with Roy Orbison and George Harrison.
God, I feel so uneducated.
I know.
Pathetic right
Yeah,
now.
he's pretty important.
Well, I think it's a pretty tragic thing about someone dying that they you take more
Obviously,
interest
yeah.
into
Yeah,
after
yeah.
they've
Yeah,
died.
yeah. 2016 taught us that. Everyone becomes a fan when someone is...
Yeah, well,
when someone
definitely.
has passed.
And that's when I've actually learnt a bit about him, to be honest. So obviously his close friend Bob Dylan's a bit. Well, he said it's shocking, crushing news, and sort of makes you wish that you'd paid more attention to him when he knew more about him when he was like
Alive.
alive, and
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
but
makes you want to listen to them and
it's-
find out what they did, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's the case with like lots of in the music industry. There's always one person that you might not know their name, but they're responsible for so many songs that are so well known.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't know them by name. I probably wouldn't know that it's a Tom Petty song, but if I heard one, then I'd probably know what it
Yeah.
was.
yeah. Well, there is. I think there's a couple which everyone knows, that Free
Sing it.
Falling.
Yeah,
Sing it.
I know that one.
I have
Do
got the
it.
voice. of
Do it, do it.
Because I'm
Do it.
free.
Oh, I was joking. Stop.
Yeah.
please don't do that. It's not that
Not
kind of
very
shit.
good, no.
You should know the line between joke and reality. That was a joke.
Blur somewhat,
Blur somewhat in Danny's mind.
which may come into as a theme later in the TV section, but we won't go there yet.
Oh,
Yeah,
Anyway,
well,
in other news, James Cameron, who's got the rights to Terminator back, so he's directing Terminator 6. It says that it'll be a sequel to T2. So Terminator 6 is a sequel to Terminator 2. I don't know how that makes any sense, but 3, 4 and 5 apparently didn't happen anymore.
So does that just mean that they were pointless, aimless movies?
Yeah, that's kind of how all the Terminator films work, though, because
Yeah.
just time travel and stuff, so they always just sort of reset it, or they try and work a really weird continuity in. Yeah, it's a strange one with the Terminators.
I want to know if Arnie's going to be in again.
I don't know. He was in Genesis, and Genesis wasn't
I
great.
think he will. That's his catchphrase, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think they're going to recast him as like a younger
you get that?
person. I get it.
Thank you.
He'll be back. He said.
I'll be back.
Nice impression.
Thank you. It was more Jamaican, I'll be honest with you. It was Arnold Schwarzenegger does the Caribbean.
It's been an absolutely flawless start to this podcast.
Yeah,
I'm not
I
gonna lie.
The addition of me,
You bring the pizzazz.
I told you I would.
I sort of feel like Terminator has run its course. To
I
be
think
honest.
so too. But I think they're sort of doing a semi-reboot sort of thing.
Mhm.
I think they're going to recast Arnie.
Semi-reboot.
Yeah, they're sort of going to recast Arnie in the same role, not recast the actor, recast the role of something else.
Well, hopefully it'll like bring some life back to the franchise, because I've not got a lot of faith in it, to be honest.
No, they've all been a bit shocking after T2,
Yeah.
haven't they?
Yeah,
I must admit,
have you not watched them?
never.
But it doesn't matter if they've been shocking from T2, because the next film's going to be, they're all wiped out, aren't they?
Yeah,
It's going to be the one after that.
So-
So
literally doesn't matter.
This might be slightly stupid of me. Why wouldn't you just call it something else? Why do I
Because
pull along a dead horse? Just call it something else.
brand
Rebrand it.
recognition, and it'll
Yeah.
make money.
I suppose
Yeah, I suppose.
the franchise is that big. They need to like have that there, don't they? But
Yeah, I mean, you've never
Um,
seen it, Faith, but you know what it is.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
And you know all the robots.
Yeah.
I'll be back.
Oh, I knew that. Yeah.
You know the impressions. You know, it's that iconic.
She doesn't know the accent though.
She
Clearly,
doesn't know the accent. She doesn't know where Arnold Schwarzenegger's from.
Oh, I'm so tempted to carry on with the accent, but I don't want to be offensive, so therefore
You're already
not
offended. Who
going
you're
to.
going to offend?
I wish
Yeah.
you would. So
I'll do it for you later.
Oh, dear.
Sorry.
What we do after this podcast, no one knows.
Remains between the three
Sounds
of
quite
us.
ominous.
So we're going to move on to our first subject, which was a new. It's not well. It's pretty new, isn't it? It's a Netflix series called American Vandal.
TV.
It's just not the way I thought things were gonna go. I was gonna graduate high school, get my degree in like engineering. I know I didn't do it.
It is a shocking scene for Hanover High teachers today.
The Vandals spray painted obscene images on 27 cars.
Oh my God.
I'll never understand what's so amusing about penises.
Everyone.
I started watching it last night, and I got like halfway through the whole series after only intending to watch one episode, so I knew what it was about.
Wow.
I did it Friday, Saturday, hammered it, and I just watched them all. They're only 30-minute episodes though, so they are pretty like easy to digest
Yeah.
and binge watch on.
That's what made
really.
me go, oh, I'll just watch another because it's only 30
Yeah.
minutes. And then
And they like it's sort of a bit like the aim was like a bit like a true crime documentary, so like making a murderer.
By the way, if
Yeah.
you're gonna, we highly recommend you watch it. So if you're gonna then watch it now before we spoil everything about
Watch
it.
it now.
Spoiler,
Because it's
spoiler
something-
alert.
I went in knowing nothing about it, and I'm really glad that I did, because that's some of the most surprising bits. Faith, we don't care about you, so
Yeah.
we're
Thanks,
gonna spoil
boys.
it for you.
So
anyway.
it's
Well,
it's
you
a bit
know-
like making
oh.
a murderer in your favourite cereal.
yeah, it's basically
similar.
those,
Now you're
um,
talking my language, a podcast.
Yeah.
except it's sort of a takedown of those, because
Yeah.
it's like it's not real, basically. It's a mockumentary. So there's actors in it pretending to be high school kids. So what it's
Yeah.
about is someone's drawn obscene images in a high school in America. on-
Obscene.
obscene images. You can't say what they
Gentlemen's
are.
agreements.
Gentlemen's agreements.
on every staff member's like teacher's car. haven't
Yeah,
they?
and the typical like troublemaker, troubled kid is getting expelled
Yeah.
for it, and this documentary nerdy kid filmmaker is trying to sort of either prove that it wasn't him or actually prove who it was. It is very like true crimey, really.
I really thought it was true until Billy told me just before.
It's fake, they're actors.
So you introduced it to Billy.
Yeah, and
Billy spent one day watching it and went, "Mate, you've watched it wrong."
It's fake.
but,
brilliant.
But
that's
it was a
that's like
documentary.
I think that's the good thing about it. Like that was the aim of it, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Like to make
How well faked it was. So I suppose
Yeah.
like The Office, when that first came out, people were like, "Oh, what's this documentary about?" But there are bits of
Yeah.
it that are like how would a high school kid be able to afford to build all those graphics and
Yeah.
film on like film grade quality cameras and
Oh yeah, but that my idea was that I thought that they'd made this documentary and then Netflix had come in and just put a load of money behind it and then sort of
Yeah.
made it, jazzed it up a bit.
no, it's not that. It's all
but
fake.
obviously not.
Yeah.
I do feel like a bit of a fool now, but
No, but that's like it is very well faked. That's what the point of it is, sort of. It just, I think the acting's so good and it's so like naturalistic that you can believe that the people in it are real, and the world's so sort of well fleshed out. Like you get to know pretty much everyone at that high school, and you get to know what they were doing at the time that the
Yeah.
graffiti took place.
it's a classic whodunit, isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah,
really?
basically.
And it is.
But also a sort of deconstruction of
Yeah.
whodunits.
And well, this is how much I got into. I was like going along with all these conspiracy theories, like Americans, they do anything to
Yeah.
frame
Americans
frame-
love a
yeah.
conspiracy
To
to
theory.
They
frame
do.
the class clown.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did really enjoy it.
but that's what I mean. It sort of follows those conventions just because, but then it does sort of becomes really engaging in its own way, even though it is
Yeah.
basically a joke.
and literally every episode sort of finishes on a big cliffhanger,
yeah,
doesn't it?
Is,
And you're
it
like,
is a
"Whoa."
classic sort of Netflix bingeable
Yeah.
series.
Yeah.
It's built
So-
like that.
It's not a mockumentary in terms of like funny mockumentary.
No.
Yeah, it is though,
Well,
because
Is it?
the kids have some funny.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, does it poke fun at the fact that it is a mockumentary?
No.
Well, clearly not, because you didn't think it was.
There is one bit where they're on
Not
the phone.
really.
They're on the phone with the troubled kid's lawyer, and the
He's
guy
got
is
a lawyer.
the guy is That's what I mean. That's how silly it gets.
This kid is Daddy Rich.
They
Yeah.
Daddy Rich.
the guy who's making the film is talking to him, and he's like, "Sorry, who is this?" He's like, "I'm making a documentary about his case," and he goes, "Why are you doing that?" And he's like, "Well, it's a bit like Serial," and he goes, "That sounds really boring." And then, like, that's like the end of the scene. It's
Yeah.
funny.
They I did enjoy it, and I would very highly recommend watching it, but I sort of got drawn into it and loved it.
You got drawn into it, loving it without knowing it was a joke.
How did you find out it was a joke, Billy?
He's
It was a mockumentary.
Googled it.
Well, I
Oh,
did,
yeah.
because I
Wikipedia.
thought you can't have that sort of production value, and then there was something at the end that I thought that line's just a bit too silly for someone to actually say.
Yeah.
And then I
Senor
thought, yeah.
Googled it over here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't Google it. I watched it in the space of a night and a morning, me.
And also the fact that like
Wow.
a director comes up at the end that isn't the person who's the credits
Oh,
at the
okay.
end. There's
Yeah.
a director and
Yeah.
You
a
can,
producer and an editor.
you can
and
tell Billy's a TV or film analyst,
Yeah.
whereas you are not, my friend.
Yeah,
And we're
no,
into
but that's why-
podcasts and radio.
That's why if you haven't watched it and you've gone into this, then you know you
Yeah.
should have gone into it without knowing what it was, because I was expecting Making a Murderer, and then I got a
Yeah.
sort of satire of American culture and all this that I wasn't expecting at all.
I've been recommending it like it's a really good documentary.
And it's not real. None of it's real.
I've been watching this really
God, no.
highbrow documentary.
Don't know who to trust these days.
It's
They're
got
all-
actors in them.
Trust. That's funny.
Right, so shall we move on to the podcast?
Podcast.
Yeah, I've been listening to the Russell Brand Under the Skin podcast, which is like, I think it's weekly. It's weekly. Basically, he takes a topic or usually he brings in a specialist and like a person who's a specialist on their subject, and then discusses said subject with them. So, for example, the one that I've just listened to was about meditation, and it was with a lady who has just written a book. Well, she's written several books about meditation, and you either love or hate Russell Brand, don't you?
Yeah,
I'm not a fan person, but
Well, this
That's
is
just
where
me.
Discussion is good.
yeah,
definitely.
I agree with you.
And you either love him or hate him, because he's like an excitable little child when he gets something under his belt that he loves, and what I love about it is that he genuinely is really passionate about what he's talking about in every single episode,
Yeah,
because it's something that like he loves, like talking about consciousness and politics and social equality, and like
yeah,
once he gets going, he is just away, and like his humor is so quick
Yeah,
and snappy, and it's just hilarious.
I think that's what, because they're hour-long podcasts as well, aren't
Yeah.
they? So they are a lot. It's
Oh.
a big chunk to listen to at once, but you find the one I listened to was the most recent about anarchy, and he he has like experts who know everything about the subject, but then Russell Brand will just like throw in like a one-liner, and it just it brings you back like to life a bit.
Hello, you're listening to Under the Skin with me, bro. Oh, I don't even know my own name. You're listening to me, Russell Brand, and I'm talking to Professor David. I'm assuming Professor.
Yeah, you can drop the professor. I don't like it very much.
Oh, Professor, eh? I've come up in the world. Professor David Harvey, I'll be talking to as if we was equals.
The one that I was listening to with her name's Susan. I feel really bad because I've forgotten her name. I should probably find out. He's talking to this woman who has been meditating for 40 years. She went to India in like the 70s, and she's done the whole shebang. She's like well into spirituality and consciousness and meditating, all of these wonderful things. And then like he just throws it out there. He goes, "So have you ever taken ayahuasca?" And it just like, why would you? Because everyone's thinking, I wonder if she's ever experimented with anything like that. And he's just not bothered. He just
everyone
throws
wondering that,
caution
though?
to the wind. He's like, "So have you ever done ayahuasca?" And I was on the bus yesterday and laughed out loud to myself.
Yeah.
And she's like, No. Come on, love. It's a safe space. We're all friends here.
It's only going out on iTunes to have many people.
Yeah, he did similar on the one I listened to, and it really made me laugh. And they're talking about like socialism and like Scandinavian countries, and he was like, why is it always these Scandinavians? And then said, is it the pornography? Or is it and it just tickled me as well. I think it actually has given me, I've subscribed to it on my podcast channel, and I will listen to him again.
Good.
But yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Well, I'll have to give it a watch then.
I think the best thing about it is that they are serious, and I found myself getting lost a little bit because they do talk very like eloquently, and they know what they're talking about.
They use
long words and stuff.
It's very like educational language, and
but I also think they know that, and Russell Brand like sort of tries to dumb it down a little bit for people who don't understand.
He references and makes a point of the fact that the language that they use and get caught up in sometimes is very long-winded and not that accessible for someone who's listening to a podcast just for the sake of it, or someone who's a fan of Russell Brand perhaps, who's just coming into this because it's Russell Brand. But the point of the podcast that he's explained is to take these sorts of topics and like try and get people interested who aren't of an educational like higher standard, and that sounds really bad, but and I think he does it quite well.
He's just a modern day Lord Byron, isn't he?
He's trying to bring them subjects more accessible to everyday like people, I guess.
Like just looking at some of them here, like the topics, like I think there's something in there for everyone. And
they talk about like terrorism in Manchester and Donald
Even
Trump.
Someone who doesn't like Russell Brand is the things in there for people who don't like Russell Brand.
He does a podcast about why does no one like Russell Brand.
Well, that's an idea for him for a future episode if he ever gets stuck. But
there is.
Well, it might make me like Russell Brand. I don't know.
There's a lot to sink your teeth into. Marxism.
Marxism. That's like what they say about Jeremy Corbyn now. Like he's Marxist. It's like a political movement. I don't really know the complete term for it, but it's what.
It's basically communism, isn't it?
We're making our own mini little version here.
So shall we move on to our next
film?
I watched Kingsman: The Golden Circle last week after we reviewed the first Kingsman. Which, to sum up, if you didn't listen to last week's, first of all, why not? But second of all, the first one was fun. It was good, and I don't think it needed a sequel particularly. But now we've got one, and it's okay. So
is it better or worse?
Much worse, I'd say.
Is it?
It's weird because it's one of those films where the more I think about it, the more I dislike it, which probably isn't good as like to objectively view it as. But I think it's definitely bigger, I guess, if you can say that. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's good.
Eggsy, I saw in you what someone once saw in me. Something that can't be taught. The makings of a Kingsman. Being a Kingsman is more than the clothing we wear or the weapons we bear. It's about being willing to sacrifice for the greater good. I hope you're ready for what comes next.
There's just a lot of things that work. There's still things about from the first one that really work, like all the action. And it's funny as well because it's the same people that did the first one. It's like Matthew Vaughn's the director, and it's basically everyone who worked on the first one. And then somehow they made a film that's, in my opinion, not as good. But I think if you probably don't look too deeply at it, you'll have a good time. It's just there's.
You'll have a good time.
You'll have a good time with it.
If you get sweetened popcorn and a big milkshake.
Yeah, if you switch your brain off, take out a second mortgage on your house and buy a load of snacks at the cinema, you'll have...
You haven't got a mortgage.
Oh, alright.
Don't try and kid anyone.
All right. Well...
It's pocket money that you get.
Ear to the Ground podcast with Danny, Billy, and Faye.
So yeah, the setup for the sequel is that the Kingsmen all die basically, apart from a few. I'm not gonna say who it was, but
Right.
A lot of the characters all die, even after seconds of being introduced, which, you know, I guess
Well, what's the
is
rest
fine.
of the film then?
Then they go and find the Statesmen, which are in America,
Yeah.
and they're like the American Kingsmen, and that's got Channing Tatum, Jeff Bridges, Halle Berry, who else? There's another cameo that I'm forgetting. The guy from Narcos.
Pedro Pascal.
That's his name.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're all a sort of super Americanized Wild West version of the Kingsmen.
Do you think did it work well? Was it worth it?
Thing is, that's just one element in
Because
a film where there's lots of elements that just don't really go anywhere.
for what I had for the Kingsman was meant to be like 007 on like acid or whatever.
I think
going
it works
crazy.
as sort of a one-off joke.
Raised an eyebrow at that one.
It works as sort of a one-off joke, and then there's the villain played by Julianne Moore, who is not as good as Samuel L. Jackson in the first one, like nowhere near as good. She has a weird sort of palace in a temple in Colombia, but she's got a lot of 1950s artifacts around her because she likes the 50s or something. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense, and even in the world that they set up in the first one, I know it's silly and it's not meant to make a lot of sense, but it doesn't make a lot of sense even within the world. So yeah, and I think the main reasons that it doesn't work well, Colin Firth's back for one. I don't mind spoiling that because he's on all the posters, he's in all the trailers.
Yeah.
He's the one with the eye patch, isn't he?
He is, because he got shot through the eye in the last one. Spoiler.
See, I know my stuff.
Exactly. And
I've seen an advert.
Ignoring the fact that
I've seen the posters.
ignoring the fact that he's back just sort of negates all the character stuff from the last one, all the like twist in the middle of the last one. Then he just isn't really given that much to do. Like, he comes back and half of it he's got memory loss because, of course, he has, because that's what happens.
Because he's got no eye.
Yeah, basically.
Has his eye now turned into a gadget eye, and it's like
no, they didn't even do anything cool with that. He's just got a funny eye, so he just wears glasses.
Oh.
Has he got a glass eye?
No.
Does he pop it out and show people?
No, not even that.
He's
They
just
didn't even do anything.
my eye?
He's now just a weirdo in the corner of the pub, like.
Oh
He
yeah,
actually is.
that guy in the pub. Do you want to see my glass eye? Ear to the Ground podcast.
So yeah, he's basically given nothing to do. He's lost his memory for half of it, and then as soon as he gets it back, he's just not really got anything. He's not the same character from the first one, basically. He's not the sort of hyper-competent, like James Bond-esque spy.
Hypercontinent.
He's not incontinent.
Just south of
very-
Africa,
he's
the
very
new
hypochondriac.
hypercontinent.
Oh dear.
You
He's
tried though, Billy.
I did.
Oh dear.
I did try.
You managed to get in the word negate in there,
I did. I used a big
which
word.
to you I salute.
He doesn't really have much to do at all, is what I'm trying to say. He just doesn't go anywhere with the plot. He doesn't affect the plot in any way. And apart from one action scene at the start, one kind of cool one in the middle that goes on for about 30 seconds, and one at the end, there isn't that much action either, which the first one didn't have that much, I guess, but it filled it with other stuff, like character stuff, and like a nice underdog story about Eggsy, becoming a Kingsman. And then in this one, there's just not really any of that. It's just sort of the statesmen are good, and then they're not, and then they are, and then they're not. And then Eggsy as well still has... Do you remember from the end of the last one with the princess at the end?
Yeah.
Well, she's still his girlfriend in this one for some reason. Because, I always pictured him as sort of the James Bond type that, has his way with a lot of women. But apparently he's got a girlfriend, and they get a new dog, and it's like Okay.
Living happily ever after. What a superhero that guy is.
I know, right?
Spy.
I know.
What a
and
superhero.
then it's
He's
sort
living
of
a normal life.
it is a bit like that. That's the sort of joke that they try to make at the start, but then by halfway through they expect you to care. In like the sort of second act's turning point, they expect you to care that he might lose her or something over nothing, and it's like,
But what about the dog?
yeah, exactly. That's basically what they do. You hit the nail on the head there, Faith.
I've never even seen it, and
Exactly.
I really know it.
You already know the film. That's what I mean. It's full of cliches like that, really. And I mean, there are some set pieces that are very unique and that you won't see in any other film. Like, Julianne Moore's got some robot dogs, and,
Is this just Robot Marley in me? Because it's starting to sound like it.
No. There is a lot of dogs in it, surprisingly.
Yeah.
But I think one of the main breakers for me is a cameo near the end of Elton John, which I don't mind spoiling because he's on the poster. But I mean, I went to see it with my girlfriend, and she wanted to go because of Channing Tatum. Elton John is literally in the film for more than Channing Tatum,
Is it?
and it's a very agonising sort of cameo. It's the worst kind where he has nothing to do and he has no jokes. The joke is that it's Elton John, and Julianne Moore has him locked up in this room.
Does he play himself?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Julianne, yeah. Oh God.
I didn't know if he had a character.
No, he's a one-role sort of guy.
That's the
Elton.
joke. That's the joke that it's Elton John.
Yeah.
He basically swears at all the guards that try and make him play music, and that's pretty much it. And then he comes in with a flying kung fu kick at the end, and I guess that's
Elton does.
You're laughing now, but within the context of the film, it's not that funny. They somehow make a flying kung fu kick Elton John not funny. Like, it comes across as the most lowbrow and sort of. He even looks at the camera and winks. That's how self-referential it is.
I didn't think Elton would have a kick in him, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, he does. There you go.
I didn't think the old boy had it in him.
And like I said, if you don't analyse things as deeply as I do, I guess, then you'll probably have fun with it. You might like the Elton cameo. I don't know.
Well,
a few people have said they like it, and I'm just like, I can't see that at all being funny. But maybe I'm just humorless.
Yeah.
Who knows?
It is saying that they wrote this in with the idea that there is going to be a third film as well.
Probably, yes.
So,
and if they're all this quality, then I'll probably stop watching them. I might watch the second one, see if it's the third one, see if it's any better. But this one was just uninteresting in most parts. Had a few sort of Mark Strong's really good again, the guy that plays Merlin. But he's not in it that much. And it's all a bit of a mess, really. I think that's the main thing.
God.
yeah, I think it's saying, did it leave itself on a good cliffhanger? So it's from the director Matthew Vaughn saying they envision Golden Circle as the Empire Strikes Back moment, which would take the second installment of the trilogy, would took you to the cliff edge before letting the third film resolve the matter.
Oh, really? I don't think they did that at all. To go full spoilers, at the end, they, like, half of the statesmen who are still good come to England to join the Kingsmen and reform them, and that's pretty much it. And Eggsy gets married to the princess person.
So it's going to be basically, it's going to finish on a big fight between good and evil. Do you think?
Maybe. I'm not sure, to be honest. I don't know. I don't think
No.
if he said that, then I don't know where the films are going. But
So
if that's what he intended, then
yeah,
that must be where it's going.
and that's how it is then.
That's how it is. There's
well.
hardly less gadgets for you. There's hardly any more gadgets for you. There's still a few more, but most of them they just reuse from the first one. And it's sort of like, oh, remember this? It also
Saved on
has
props.
It has the most abrasive callback to the first film. You know, the pub scene from the first one, which
Yeah.
they did twice in that film.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a bit, like
Yeah.
it wasn't my favourite part that they did it twice. They try and do it again, but obviously with like a bit of a twist. But it just comes across as really sort of pandering and really sort of, remember the first film? It was good, right?
Yeah,
And that's.
and it's just trying to build off that, but it's
But
a
it doesn't
sorry
have-
imitation of the first.
It doesn't have that many great new ideas. So
No.
that's
Well, so is it a non-recommendation? Really?
probably, like I said, if you can turn your brain off and you can watch it, the action's still good. It's still well directed. There's some good CGI and some inventive moments, I guess. But overall, it's a bit of a mess.
The moral of the story: don't waste your mortgage on it.
Yeah, don't waste your mortgage on snacks. More like the tickets are all right now.
Ooh. I feel like Billy's got some anger in him today. He's got some sass.
I've got a fire in my belly.
Yeah, he's angry about snacks.
taking down the cinemas.
Yeah.
And their snack
Big teardown of
revolution.
mega corporations. Fight the power.
Just bring your own. Really, that's what I say.
Yeah.
Go to the corner shop before you go. Get a couple of like.
Definitely.
It's a Poundland.
Yeah.
It's only Cineworld that stops you from letting you take stuff
Yeah, but
in.
how do they know?
Well, they don't if it's in your bag. But I mean,
Exactly.
what
Or
I mean,
your pants.
I've
okay, you
Or
don't have
your
to do
bra.
that.
Don't put anything meltable in there, though, because
I
you
like
will
to
be
put
sorry.
snacks in my bra all the time.
Billy has a cinema bra that he only
I
saves
do.
for when he goes to the cinema. It's 32 double G because he likes to take lots of
Do you know
snacks with him.
what?
I try
I
to get
nearly,
nachos in there.
I nearly got once going to a festival. It was sort
What,
of
you
called
wore
a
a
beer
bra?
belly, and it was
Oh.
like, have you seen them sort of bras
Yeah, I've
what
seen
girls
them.
can have when they fill with wine and stuff? Well, this was like
No.
a beer belly which went round your belly, and you just
That
filled
could
that
be
up
good.
with booze, and then you could just drink it when you were.
Interesting.
Then
in
if
the
a security guard stopped you, could go, what are you trying to say?
Get
My
off my
belly's
belly.
I've
massive.
put a bit on.
All right. Stop checking your belly. Then they'd start checking actual people with beer bellies too.
Yeah. Just
To see if they've
putting
got...
a light hand on them. Excuse me,
Absolute
I'm not a
maverick.
man, I'm a woman, and I'm pregnant, so get your hand off.
Absolute maverick.
So, your belly's leaking. Oh, crap.
Got a bit of a puncture.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Best see the doctors about that.
Well, we started with Kingsman and ended with beer bellies full of beer. Welcome to Ear to the Ground.
It went off on a tangent.
We did. We derailed.
Yeah. So,
Much like Kingsman in the structure of Kingsman.
yeah.
I
Wow.
linked it
Oh,
back. I
Billy.
brought it back at the end.
Tedious link. We're loving it.
Ear to the Ground podcast.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Ear to the Ground podcast. Make sure you listen next week for more reviews of film, TVs and podcasts.